Elena's adoptive parents threw her out at dawn and filmed it to humiliate her. But as neighbors gathered to watch her cry on the lawn in her pajamas, a convoy of black SUVs pulled up. The man stepping out of the limousine, the one they mocked as a broke nobody, was wearing a suit that cost more than their house. He walked straight to her, ignored everyone else, and did something that made her adoptive mother grab the porch railing to keep from collapsing. What happened in the next 30 minutes didn't just change Elena's life, it ended theirs. But to understand how Elena Carter ended up barefoot and broken on the Davenport lawn at 6 in the morning, we need to go back 3 weeks. Hit subscribe before we continue. You won't want to miss how this plays out. And comment where you're watching from. I love seeing you all. 3 weeks earlier, Elena had been standing in the Davenport kitchen at dawn, her hands submerged in soapy water, scrubbing the remnants of last night's dinner party from crystal glasses. She was 28 years old, and she'd been doing this since she was 7. Elena. Vivian's voice cut through the morning quiet like a blade. The Hendersons are coming for brunch. I need the silverware polished. All of it. And don't you dare use the cheap polish like last time. Yes, Vivian, Elena replied softly, because she'd learned long ago that arguing only made things worse. Vivian Davenport swept into the kitchen in her silk robe, her blonde hair perfect even at 6 in the morning. She picked up a glass, held it to the light, found an invisible imperfection, and set it down with a sharp click. Honestly, Elena, 21 years we've given you, 21 years of food, shelter, clothing. The least you could do is show some gratitude. Elena's fingers tightened around the glass in her hands. Gratitude. They wanted gratitude for the hand-me-downs from Lana that never quite fit. For the tiny room in the attic with the window that wouldn't close. For the endless chores, the corrections, the invisible chains that kept her tethered to this house. I'm grateful, she whispered, because it was easier than the truth. Vivian left without another word, and Elena went back to scrubbing. Through the window she could see the vast estate, the perfectly trimmed hedges, the imported fountain, the 3-car garage filled with vehicles that cost more than most people's houses. The Davenports owned one of the largest construction firms in the state. They had money that multiplied itself. They had power that opened every door. And Elena had nothing except the secret she kept close to her heart. Aiden. She'd met him 9 months ago at a coffee shop in the city, far from Ridgewood Hills and the suffocating weight of the Davenport name. He'd been sketching building designs on napkins, and when their eyes met, he'd smiled at her like she was someone worth smiling at. They'd talked for hours. He told her he worked in architecture, designing spaces where people could feel safe. She told him she dreamed of a life where she could help kids like her, the adopted ones, the foster kids, the children who became accessories in other people's perfect pictures. He never asked about her family's money. He never wanted to attend their charity galas or meet the Davenports. He just wanted to know her, the real her. Elena, stop daydreaming and get upstairs. Lana needs you. Preston stood in the doorway, his expensive shirt wrinkled from whatever party he'd stumbled home from last night. At 30, he should have been running the family business. Instead, he spent his days gambling and his nights in clubs, burning through money like it would never run out. Elena dried her hands and climbed the stairs to Lana's room. Her adoptive sister was sprawling across her California king bed, scrolling through her phone where tens of thousands of followers watched her perform the role of perfect heiress. Finally, Lana said without looking up. I need you to organize my closet. I'm doing a fashion haul video tomorrow, and everything needs to be color coordinated. Also, steam that blue dress. And those shoes need to be returned. They're from last season. Lana, I have to help with the brunch. Did I ask you about the brunch? Lana's eyes finally lifted, cold and sharp. You work for this family, Elena. Or did you forget that? The words stung because they were designed to. Elena swallowed the response building in her throat and began sorting through racks of designer clothes, most worn once or never at all. Through the window, she could see Harold Davenport pacing in his study, phone pressed to his ear, his face red even from this distance. Something was wrong. She'd noticed it for weeks now. The hushed arguments, the tension crackling through the mansion's halls, the way Vivian's smile had become more forced at social events. That night, after the Hendersons had left and Elena had cleaned up the remnants of another performance of family perfection, she heard shouting from Harold's office. "Telling you the deal is dead. Morrison pulled out. That's $3 million we don't have." Harold's voice boomed through the heavy door. "Then find another investor." Vivian's response was sharp with panic. "We have the Bennett project, the Riverside development, all leveraged. Don't you understand? We're drowning, Vivian. The banks are circling. If we don't secure funding in the next month, we lose everything." Elena pressed herself against the wall, heart pounding. The Davenport empire was crumbling. All that money, all that power, it had been smoke and mirrors, debts hidden behind the facade of success. She should have felt satisfied. Instead, she felt the creeping dread of someone trapped in a burning building. The next 2 weeks spiraled. Harold spent hours locked in his office. Vivian snapped at everyone. Lana's videos became more desperate, more staged, as if maintaining the illusion online could somehow stabilize their collapsing reality. Preston came home drunk more often, cursing about money and pressure and expectations. And then came the family meeting. "Sit down, Elena." Harold's voice was flat as she entered the dining room where the family had gathered. The chandelier above cast dramatic shadows across their faces. Vivian sat rigid, her hands folded. Lana was filming discreetly from her phone. Preston slouched in his chair, a drink already in his hand. Elena sat, dread pooling in her stomach. "We have a situation," Harold began. He looked older than she'd ever seen him, the weight of his failures carving new lines into his face. "The company is facing significant financial challenges. However, we've found a solution. A partnership that will save everything we've built." He paused, and in that pause, Elena felt the trap closing. "Marcus Levington has agreed to invest $40 million into Davenport Construction," Harold continued. "He's a respected businessman, well-connected, financially secure. His investment will save this family." "That's wonderful," Elena said carefully, not understanding why she was part of this conversation. "There's a condition," Vivian cut in, her voice ice. "Marcus requires a personal commitment, a marriage. He's been quite clear about wanting a young, presentable wife to accompany him to his business functions." The room tilted. Elena gripped the edge of the table. "No," she whispered. "Elena." Harold leaned forward. "You've lived in this house for 21 years. We took you from nothing. Gave you everything." "Everything?" The word burst out of her before she could stop it. "You gave me hand-me-downs and a servant's room. You gave me chores and criticism and years of being invisible, unless you needed me for a photo opportunity." Lana laughed, sharp and cruel. "Oh, here we go. The ungrateful orphan routine. I'm not being ungrateful. I'm being honest." Elena's voice shook but held steady. "And I won't marry Marcus Levington. I met him once. He's almost 50. He's known for predatory business practices. He's our salvation," Vivian interrupted. "And you owe us." "I owe you?" Elena stood, her chair scraping against the marble floor. "I've worked for this family since I was 7 years old. I've cleaned your house, organized your events, smiled for your cameras. I've been the proof of your charity while you treated me like staff. I don't owe you my life." Preston snorted. "You don't have a life without us. Where would you even go?" Elena's hands were shaking now, but something inside her had finally broken free. Or maybe it had finally broken through. I already have someone. The silence was deafening. What did you just say? Vivian's voice was dangerously quiet. I'm seeing someone. His name is Aiden Cross. He's an architect. He's kind and thoughtful, and he treats me like I matter. I love him. The words tumbled out, and with them came a strange sense of lightness. So no, I won't marry Marcus Levington. I'm choosing my own life. Lana was recording openly now, her eyes gleaming. This is gold. Aiden Cross? Harold pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. There's no architect by that name in any major firm. Who is he, Elena? Some construction worker you picked up? A handyman? He's the person I'm going to build a life with, Elena said quietly. I'm sorry about the company's problems. I'm sorry about the money, but I'm not the solution to your mistakes. Vivian stood slowly, her composure cracking. You selfish, stupid girl. We brought you into our home. We gave you the Davenport name. And this is how you repay us? By throwing it away for some nobody? He's not a nobody to me. Then get out, Vivian said. If you won't help this family, you're not part of it. Pack your things and leave. Mom, even Preston looked uncertain now. I mean it. Vivian's voice rose. She wants to choose some street rat over the family that raised her? Let her. Let her see how far she gets without our name, our money, our protection. Elena looked around the table. At Harold, who wouldn't meet her eyes. At Preston, who shrugged uncomfortably. At Lana, still filming. Already composing the caption for her next viral post. Fine, Elena whispered. I'll leave. She turned and walked out of the dining room, her legs somehow carrying her up the stairs to her attic room. Behind her, she heard Vivian calling someone, Harold shouting about loyalty, Lana laughing about the video views this would generate. Elena pulled out her phone with trembling fingers and texted Aiden, I need you. Something's happened. Can you come tomorrow morning? His response was immediate. I'll be there at dawn. Whatever you need. I love you. She packed her few belongings, some clothes, the books she'd collected over the years, photos of her biological parents she barely remembered. Everything fit into 2 suitcases and a backpack. It wasn't much to show for 21 years. She didn't sleep that night. She sat on her bed, listening to the house settle around her, wondering if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life or finally taken the first step toward actually living it. At 5:30 in the morning, her door flew open. Get up! Lana stood there with her phone, Preston behind her with his arms crossed. Mom wants you out, now. And we're documenting everything. Lana, it's not even 6. I don't care. Get your stuff. We're going live. What followed was a nightmare in real time. Vivian directed the entire production from the foyer, her makeup perfect, her outfit carefully chosen. Staff members were ordered to carry Elena's belongings outside. Preston grabbed one of her suitcases and threw it, the latch breaking, clothes spilling across the lawn. Everyone needs to see this, Lana narrated into her phone, her voice dripping with performative disappointment. My adopted sister chose a random guy over the family that gave her everything. She's being so selfish and ungrateful. We tried to help her, but she just doesn't appreciate what she has. Neighbors began emerging from their houses, drawn by the commotion. Cars slowed on the street. Someone called to ask what was happening. Vivian projected her voice beautifully. Elena has decided she no longer wants to be part of this family, she announced. She wants to run off with some boy from nowhere. We've tried to reason with her, but she's made her choice. So we're respecting that choice. Elena stood on the lawn in her pajamas and bare feet, her belongings scattered around her like evidence of a crime. Harold stood in the doorway, arms crossed, the picture of a patriarch disappointed by a wayward child. Preston smirked. Lana circled with her phone, capturing every angle of Elena's humiliation. Please. Elena tried to gather her clothes, her face burning with shame. "Just give me a moment. Take all the time you need," Vivian said sweetly. "You're not our responsibility anymore." Someone in the gathering crowd laughed. Someone else took a photo. Elena felt tears streaming down her face, her chest tight with panic and rage and heartbreak. "This is what happens," Lana continued for her followers, "when you forget where you came from, when you bite the hand that feeds you, when you choose some loser over family." "He's not a loser," Elena whispered, but her voice was lost in the noise. Then someone said, "Who's that?" The street fell silent. Elena looked up, tears blurring her vision, and there they were. The convoy of black SUVs rolling up the hill, moving with purpose. Behind them, the silver limousine gleamed in the early morning sun. Behind that, police motorcycles flanked the procession. The vehicles stopped in perfect formation in front of the Davenport mansion. The limousine's door opened, and Aiden stepped out. But this wasn't the Aiden she knew. This wasn't the man in worn jeans who sketched on napkins and bought coffee with crumpled bills. This was someone else entirely. He was wearing a white suit that probably cost more than a car, perfectly tailored to his frame. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. A watch caught the light on his wrist. Subtle, but clearly expensive. Security guards in dark suits positioned themselves around him with military precision. And his face, his beautiful, familiar face, was calm and confident, and completely transformed from the casual architect she thought she knew. "Aiden?" Elena's voice came out as a broken whisper. He walked straight to her, ignoring the phones, ignoring the Davenports, ignoring everything except her. His shoes crunched on the gravel driveway as neighbors pressed closer, trying to understand what they were witnessing. When he reached her, he gently wiped the tears from her cheeks with his thumb. "I'm so sorry, Elena," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything. I wanted you to know the real me first. Not the name, not the money, just me." "I don't understand," she breathed, her whole body trembling. He took both her hands in his, and she felt the warmth of his touch, the same touch she'd known for 9 months, but somehow different now. "My full name is Aiden Crosswell. I'm the CEO of Crosswell Holdings." Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. Someone dropped their phone. Vivian's face went completely white. Harold grabbed the doorframe for support. Crosswell Holdings. Everyone knew that name. It was one of the largest private investment firms in the country, with assets in real estate, technology, infrastructure. They funded entire city developments. They had partnerships with governments. The Crosswell family wasn't just wealthy, they were dynasty-level powerful. They were the kind of rich that made the Davenports look like they were playing with toy money. "You're—" Elena couldn't form words. Her mind was spinning, trying to reconcile the gentle man who'd held her hand in coffee shops with the billionaire CEO standing before her with an entourage. "I should have told you sooner," Aiden said, his eyes never leaving hers. "But when I met you, I was tired of people seeing the name instead of the person. You talked to me about dreams and hopes and making the world better for kids who needed help. You never once asked about my work or my money or what I could do for you. You just saw me. Do you understand how rare that is?" His voice cracked slightly on the last sentence, and Elena saw the vulnerability there. The same vulnerability he'd shown her in quiet moments when they'd shared their fears and hopes. Harold stepped forward, his businessman instincts overriding his shock. "Mr. Crosswell, I had no idea Elena was connected to your family. If we'd known." "You'd have treated her like a person?" Aiden's voice was polite but edged with steel. He still didn't look at Harold. "You'd have given her a real room, paid her for her work, loved her like a daughter instead of using her as unpaid labor?" Vivian opened her mouth and closed it again, her face flushing red. "I know everything," Aiden continued, his voice carrying across the lawn. Elena told me about her life here. How you made her clean and cook and organize your events. How you gave her hand-me-downs while buying new clothes for your biological children. How you displayed her at charity functions to prove your generosity, but treated her like staff behind closed doors. How you just tried to sell her to Marcus Levington, a man with a documented history of manipulation and control, to save your failing company. Lana had stopped recording. Her face was pale, her phone hanging limp in her hand. Aiden turned back to Elena, his expression softening completely. He gestured, and the limousine's other door opened. Inside, hanging in pristine condition, was a wedding dress, white satin that caught the morning light, elegant and beautiful and clearly custom-made. "Elena," he said, and then he sank to one knee right there on the lawn where her belongings had been thrown, in front of the family that had tried to humiliate her, in front of the neighbors who had gathered to watch her fall. "I came here this morning to ask you something. I was going to do this properly, over dinner at that Italian restaurant you love, with flowers and romance and music. But when you texted last night, I realized I couldn't wait. And when I heard what they did to you..." His voice tightened with barely controlled anger before he steadied it. "You deserve better than this. You've always deserved better." Lana's phone was shaking in her hands. She'd started recording again, but for entirely different reasons now. "Elena Carter," Aiden continued, his voice strong and clear. "You are the strongest, kindest, most genuine person I've ever met. You survived in a house that didn't see your worth. You dreamed about helping others when you had every reason to be bitter. You loved me before you knew my last name, before you knew I could give you anything except myself. That's worth more than all the money in the world." He pulled out a ring box and opened it. Even from a distance, Elena could see the diamond catching the sunlight. Not ostentatious, but beautiful. Elegant. Chosen with care. "Will you marry me?" he asked. "Today. Right now. Let me give you a family that chooses you. Let me give you a life where no one can ever throw you away again. Let me spend every day proving that you were never the problem." They were. The street was completely silent except for the sound of Elena's sharp intake of breath and the distant chirping of birds. She looked down at him. This man she'd loved when she thought he was struggling like her. This man who'd hidden his wealth because he'd wanted to be loved for himself. This man who'd just driven up in a convoy to defend her honor in front of everyone who'd hurt her. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, her voice strengthening. "Yes. 1,000 times. Yes." The crowd erupted in applause. Not mocking now. Celebrating. Phones were still recording, but the narrative had completely shifted. This wasn't the humiliation of a foolish girl anymore. This was a fairy tale unfolding in real time. Aiden stood and pulled her into his arms, and she buried her face in his shoulder as he held her tight. She could feel him trembling slightly, and she realized he'd been nervous. A billionaire CEO had been nervous about proposing to her. "I love you," he whispered into her hair. "I love you so much, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt your worth again." Another SUV door opened, and an elegant woman in her 60s stepped out, carrying a bouquet of white roses and lilies. She was dressed impeccably, with kind eyes and a warm smile. A distinguished older man followed, silver-haired and dignified, accompanied by someone in clerical robes. "Elena," Aiden said softly, turning her to face them while keeping his arms securely around her waist. "These are my parents, Eleanor and James Croswell, and that's Minister Richards. If you'll have us, we'd like to witness your wedding. Here. Now. This morning." Eleanor approached, tears already in her eyes. She set down the flowers and took Elena's hands in hers. "My dear girl," Eleanor said, her voice warm and maternal in a way Elena hadn't heard directed at her in years. Aiden has told us so much about your strength, your kindness, your dreams of helping children. We are honored, truly honored, to welcome you to our family. James stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Elena's shoulder. We've been waiting months to meet you. Our son loves you deeply. That's all we need to know. But I'm in my pajamas, Elena said, half laughing, half crying, the absurdity of the situation finally hitting her. I'm barefoot. My hair is a mess. This isn't how anyone should get married. Then let's fix that. Eleanor smiled warmly, linking her arm through Elena's. Come with me, sweetheart. We brought everything you need. The next 30 minutes felt like a fever dream. Eleanor and two assistants who'd emerged from another SUV helped Elena into the wedding dress in the back of the limousine, and it fit perfectly, as if made for her body specifically. Because, Elena realized as Eleanor zipped it up, it probably had been. Aiden had been planning this. Someone produced professional makeup. Someone else fixed her hair into an elegant updo with small white flowers woven through it. A pair of delicate heels appeared, also her exact size. When Elena looked in the mirror they'd set up, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Not because of the transformation, but because for the first time in her life, she looked free. She looked like a bride. She looked like someone who was chosen. You're beautiful, Eleanor said, squeezing her shoulders. You've always been beautiful. Now everyone else gets to see it too. When Elena stepped out of the limousine, the crowd had grown. More neighbors had emerged. News vans were pulling up. Someone must have called the media. But Elena barely noticed them. All she saw was Aiden standing at the center of the lawn with flowers in his hands and an expression that made her heart ache with joy. The lawn had been transformed in those 30 minutes. Elena's scattered belongings had been collected and carefully placed into the SUVs. Someone had laid down a white carpet runner. Flower arrangements had appeared from nowhere. It was simple, but elegant. Exactly the kind of wedding Elena would have chosen if she'd had the chance. Minister Richards stood at the center, smiling kindly. The Davenports remained frozen on their porch like statues, their power completely stripped away by the simple presence of someone with more of it. Harold's face was ashen. Vivian looked like she might faint. Lana had gone completely still, her phone recording but her expression dazed. Preston was staring at the convoy like he couldn't quite believe it was real. Aiden met Elena halfway, taking her hand and tucking it into the crook of his arm. They walked together to stand before Minister Richards as the morning sun climbed higher, bathing everything in golden light. We are gathered here, Richards began, his voice warm and carrying, to witness the joining of two souls who found each other not in palaces or boardrooms, but in a coffee shop, who built their love not on names or money or social status, but on genuine connection and mutual respect, who chose each other when they thought they had nothing else. Elena looked into Aiden's eyes and saw everything she'd been searching for: safety, partnership, someone who saw all of her and chose her anyway. Someone who'd hidden his wealth because he'd wanted to be loved for who he was, not what he had. They were more alike than she'd ever realized. Aiden, Richards prompted gently. I, Aiden Crosswell, he said clearly, his voice steady and sure. Promise to protect you, support you, and love you every single day. To give you a home where you're cherished, not tolerated. To build a life where your dreams matter as much as mine. To make sure you never feel unwanted or invisible again. To see you, really see you, the way you've always deserved to be seen. I promise to honor the strength it took for you to survive and to give you a future where you can thrive. Elena's voice shook but held. I, Elena Carter, promise to trust you with my heart, to build our future together as equals. To remember that real love isn't about rescuing, it's about choosing each other every day. To help you stay grounded when the world sees only your name and forgets the person underneath. To love you for who you are, not what you have. To build something beautiful with you, something real. Then by the power vested in me, Richard smiled broadly. I pronounce you husband and wife. Aiden, you may kiss your bride. Aiden kissed her as the crowd cheered, as cameras captured the moment, as the sun rose higher over Ridgewood Hills and illuminated everything. It was gentle and deep and filled with promise. When they pulled apart, Elena was crying again, but this time from joy. The applause continued as they turned to face their audience. Eleanor was dabbing at her eyes. James was beaming. Even some of the neighbors who'd been filming Elena's humiliation minutes ago were now clapping genuinely, caught up in the unexpected romance of it all. But Aiden wasn't finished. He kept Elena's hand in his and turned toward the Davenport family, his expression shifting from tender to coldly professional. "Harold?" he said, his voice carrying with unmistakable authority. "I need to inform you of something. As of 8 o'clock this morning, about 20 minutes ago, Crosswell Holdings has officially declined all potential partnership opportunities with Davenport Construction. We were approached last week by your team about a possible investment. After researching your company and your family, we determined it wouldn't be a suitable match." Harold's face crumbled like a sandcastle hit by a wave. "Mr. Crosswell, please, we can discuss." "Additionally," Aiden continued, cutting him off, "we've acquired the outstanding debts your company owes to Morrison Financial, Riverside Bank, and Bennett Development Group. The paperwork was finalized at 7:30 this morning. You'll receive official documentation by the end of business today. All debts are now held by our firm, and we'll be proceeding with standard collection protocols." "You can't," Vivian breathed, gripping the porch railing. "That will destroy us." "You destroyed yourselves," Eleanor said quietly but firmly from behind them. She stepped forward, and there was steel beneath her gentle appearance. "My son showed me the videos your daughter posted online over the past few days. I saw how you treated Elena, how you threw her belongings on the lawn like garbage, how you tried to sell her to Marcus Levington, a man we know has a reputation for controlling and manipulating his partners, how you used her for 21 years and then discarded her the moment she stood up for herself." Eleanor's voice grew harder. "I've built my life on the principle that how you treat people when they have no power tells you everything about your character. You failed that test spectacularly. Actions have consequences, Mr. and Mrs. Davenport. You're about to learn that lesson." Lana's phone was still recording, capturing her mother's panic, her father's devastation, the moment their world collapsed. The video that was supposed to showcase an ungrateful daughter was becoming something else entirely, evidence of karma arriving in a silver limousine. Preston spoke up, his earlier arrogance completely gone, replaced with desperation. "Elena, come on, we're still family. You can't let them do this. Tell them to stop. Please." Elena looked at him, really looked at all of them. She saw 21 years of casual cruelty, of being made to feel less than, of being used and discarded. She also saw their fear now, their desperation, the same vulnerability they'd made her feel every single day. For a moment, she almost felt sorry for them. Then she remembered the hand-me-downs, the attic room, the unpaid labor, the way they'd thrown her belongings on the lawn, the way they'd tried to sell her to save themselves. "You threw me away," she said softly, but her voice carried across the lawn. "You did that. Not me. Not Aiden. You. You had 21 years to see me, to value me, to love me. And you never did. So no, Preston, we're not family. We never were." She turned back to Aiden, her husband, and let him lead her to the limousine. Eleanor kissed her cheek. James squeezed her hand welcomingly. As they drove away, Elena looked back once through the tinted window. The Davenports were still standing there, watching their perfect facade crumble in real time, finally experiencing the powerlessness they'd inflicted on her for more than 2 decades. Neighbors were talking excitedly, phones still out. News crews were setting up cameras. The story was already spreading, and Elena felt something she hadn't expected. Peace. Not satisfaction in their downfall. Not joy in their suffering. Just peace that she'd finally escaped. The fallout was swift and brutal. By noon, Lana's live stream had gone viral, but not the way she'd intended. Millions watched the transformation from humiliation to triumph. The Davenports became infamous overnight. Their cruelty exposed, their desperation mocked. Within weeks, major partners withdrew from Davenport construction. Banks accelerated collection efforts. The mansion was listed for auction. Within 2 months, Harold and Vivian had relocated to a modest apartment, their empire reduced to rubble. 6 months later, Elena stood in her home office, sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. Her office was the headquarters of Second Chances Foundation. "We have 15 applications this week," her assistant Maria reported. "We can offer housing to all of them if we utilize the new facility." Elena reviewed the files, seeing pieces of herself in every story. "Approve them all," she said firmly, "and let's increase the scholarship fund." After Maria left, Aiden appeared with tea. He'd remembered from their first day that she preferred something gentle. "How's the world changing going?" he asked, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Slowly but surely, Elena leaned into him. "We're helping. That's what matters." They stood together, looking out over the city. In the distance, she could see where the Davenport mansion had once stood. She felt no satisfaction in their fall, only the quiet peace of someone who'd survived. "Do you ever regret it?" Aiden asked quietly. "That morning. The way it happened." Elena thought carefully. "No. If it hadn't happened that way, I might have stayed out of obligation or fear. They didn't throw me away, Aiden. They set me free." He pulled her closer. "You set yourself free. I just showed up with a limousine." She laughed. "You showed up with a limousine, a convoy, your parents, a minister, and a wedding dress in my exact size. Don't downplay it." "I'd have shown up with an army if that's what you needed," he said seriously. "That's what you do when you love someone." That evening, Elena recorded a message for her foundation's promotional video. "If you're listening to this and you feel unloved or unwanted, please hold on. Your story isn't over yet," she said, her voice steady and warm. "I spent 21 years in a house where I was never quite enough. When I finally stood up for myself, they tried to destroy me. They threw my belongings on their lawn. They filmed my tears." Her expression softened. "But here's what they didn't understand. You can't destroy someone who's already learned to survive you." That moment, that awful moment, was actually when my real life began. She leaned forward. "So if you're in that dark moment right now, remember, sometimes the people who throw you away are clearing the path for the people who will choose you. Hold on. Your convoy is coming." Later that night, Elena and Aiden lay in bed in their home, a beautiful penthouse that felt warm and lived in. Her head rested on his chest, his fingers trailing through her hair. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. You didn't fall in love with a victim. You fell in love with me. I fell in love with a woman who ordered tea because she wanted something gentle after a hard day, who left extra tips because she knew what it felt like to be invisible, who talked about dreams instead of complaints, who laughed at my terrible jokes." His voice grew softer. "I fell in love with your heart, Elena. Everything else is just me trying to give your heart the home it always deserved." Elena closed her eyes, finally believing she was worthy of love. not because of what she could do, but because she existed. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too. Always." The girl they tried to throw away had learned to fly instead. She'd taken the pain and transformed it into purpose. She'd survived and then thrived, and then helped others do the same. Somewhere across the city, in a small apartment that would have fit into one wing of their former mansion, Vivian Davenport scrolled through her phone and saw the video. She saw Elena glowing with happiness, saw the foundation growing, saw the life they'd never given her flourishing without them. And for just a moment, Vivian understood the magnitude of what they'd lost. Not money or status, but the chance to love someone extraordinary, the chance to be part of something meaningful, the chance to be better than they were. But that chance was gone now. The girl they'd treated as decoration had become someone's treasure, and the family that had thrown her away would spend the rest of their lives watching from a distance as she became everything they'd never believed she could be. Elena fell asleep in Aiden's arms, safe and chosen and home. And in the morning, she'd wake up and continue building a world where no child would ever have to earn love, where love would be given freely, completely, and without conditions. Because that's what happened when you survived people who tried to break you. You became unbreakable, and then you used that strength to protect others who were still learning to stand. The girl they tried to throw away became the woman who caught others. And in the end, that was the greatest triumph of all. If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next story.